Hat, check. Sunglasses, check. Notes, check. Pepsi, check. Sources, check. Thick skin, check. Oh, and one more thing. 10,000 subscribers, check. Let's go! Welcome back to Gold and Blue Dude, everybody, and if you are a die-hard college football fan, this is the place for you. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. College football videos every single day. Now today I want to talk about the ACC. There's some good news and there's some bad news. Now, let's get to the bad news real quick. For the most part, it's already known because it was announced that USC and UCLA was headed off to the Big Ten. We also heard that the SEC was interested in Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and Virginia. Well, now we're finding out just how serious Florida State is about jumping conferences. The Florida State president says that the Seminoles will be very aggressive in conference realignment. Now, here's the thing that I didn't realize. Florida State has been talking to the Big Ten and the SEC since last summer. First of all, last summer. Does that mean now or last summer, last year? If it's last summer, then you're talking about 2021. And I didn't know Florida State had been talking to the SEC and the Big Ten. That's another thing. I didn't know Florida State was talking to the Big Ten. Are you serious? So yes, the Big Ten is interested in Florida State, and Florida State has been talking to the Big Ten. I don't know what their preference would be, although you would think the SEC would be a better fit for the Florida State Seminoles. So I would expect Florida State to choose the SEC over the Big Ten. But I didn't know they had a choice. I thought this was an ESPN plan. They're going to break the grant of rights. That way they can move the bigger brands up to the SEC. Man, you talk about something that could backfire. I mean, you break the grant of rights and Florida State chooses the Big Ten. That is a big, big backfire for ESPN and the SEC. Now, I say that's bad news for the ACC, but really that's nothing new. We already knew that the SEC was interested in the four big brands. They're trying to renegotiate the TV deal and figure out a way around those grant of rights. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Everything gets thrown and hits a wall, and that wall is the grant of rights. So that has to get figured out before any of this happens. It just blew my mind that Florida State has been actually talking to the Big Ten. So yes, that's the bad news. We pretty much knew everything I just said, except for Florida State talking to the Big Ten. Didn't know that. And talking to them since last summer. If that's true, then that's not just now. That's 2021. Because we're still in the summer of 2022. One team that this could have a significant effect on is Miami. Remember, the SEC didn't want Miami in their first round as far as the first four teams they want to bump up from the ACC to the SEC. So if Florida State for some reason chooses the Big Ten, then the SEC might grab Miami. And trust me, right now, Miami fans aren't too thrilled with ESPN because they have chosen Florida State over Miami. Miami fans actually want Miami to go to the Big Ten, where they could get shafted on that as well if Florida State chooses the Big Ten, and Miami has to go to the SEC whether they want to or not. Well, I mean, they always have a choice, but staying in the ACC, not making as much money, it's not really much of a choice. So just a little bit of something to think about. But there's also some pretty good news for the ACC. This is also a little bit of old news, but I don't see a lot of people talking about it. And that is Comcast and Xfinity creating a partnership with ESPN and Disney. Now, the problem with the ACC network is it's not content, although we do know that the ACC is down. But they have a lot of games. The problem is not a lot of people have access to it. They did not have a well thought out plan for the distribution of the ACC network. Well, this is going to help out a lot. Last year, November 30th, 2021, that's when this deal was signed. So now Xfinity and Comcast will carry those games, and it's going to be much more ready, available for much more of the public. That's a big deal for the ACC and ESPN. Now, the availability of the ACC network is a part of Comcast, and the Walt Disney Company's content carriage agreement renewal that will continue to make Disney's programming available to Xfinity TV customers. So if you're an Xfinity TV customer, you will have access to the ACC network now. This coming from Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner. With the addition of Comcast, the ACC network is now fully distributed with every major satellite, telco, and digital provider across the country and available to nearly 90 million households. Further launch details in Comcast Xfinity markets will be available in the coming weeks. So that was back in November, so I'm sure the full report is available now. We are thrilled that the ACC network has reached full distribution with the addition of Comcast, who are already robust lineup of providers. So now they are fully distributed. They can reach their full potential. That was the biggest knock on the ACC network. Yes, we all know that the ACC is down, so maybe the product wasn't great. but still you want people to have access to it so they can actually make a choice. Now people will actually be able to make a choice because more people will have access to it. The ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips describes this as a milestone moment for the ACC. So yes, this is a big deal for the ACC. Let's look at the coverage that the United States will have under Comcast/Xfinity providers. Now this is the ACC states first. First you have Massachusetts, which represents Boston College. Red hot coverage, one of the best. South Carolina representing Clemson. Good coverage, pretty good, but not the best. Duke, NC State, North Carolina, and Wake Forest representing North Carolina. Decent coverage. They need to work on North Carolina because North Carolina is actually the heart of the ACC. So that needs to be bumped up. Georgia Tech representing the state of Georgia. Very good coverage. Florida State and Miami representing the state of Florida. Amazing coverage, but not quite as good as Massachusetts. Louisville representing the state of Kentucky. Decent coverage. They need to work on Kentucky. Pitt representing the state of Pennsylvania. Incredible coverage. You're doing good there. Syracuse representing the state of New York. Decent coverage. You got to work on that as well because Syracuse actually has a very big fan base and they're not getting enough access to the ACC network. Virginia and Virginia Tech representing the state of Virginia. Very good coverage. So at least you got the state of Virginia, and the state of Virginia is a pretty big part of the ACC network and the ACC as a whole. Another team that you'd have to think about is Notre Dame representing the state of Indiana because they are an affiliate of the ACC. The state of Indiana does get incredible coverage from Comcast/Xfinity. So that could be a bargaining tool for the ACC trying to get Notre Dame to become a full-time member. So they are bumping up their coverage. The states that are already part of the ACC doing pretty good. There's a few in there like the state of North Carolina. That one definitely needs to be bumped up. The state of New York is also a big one that they need to work on because Syracuse actually has the #1 fan base in the ACC in terms of size, not counting Notre Dame. I never thought of this, but maybe one of the problems as far as TV ratings for Syracuse is they just don't have access to Syracuse games. You need to get that fixed. I guarantee you ratings would go up at least a little bit. In fact, I think they would go up significantly. The numbers don't lie. They have a massive fan base that identify as Syracuse fans. And the state of Kentucky, that one as well. But pretty much all the other ones are good to go. Now, in my opinion, Comcast and Disney striking a deal equals bad news for the Big 12. One of the biggest things that the Big 12 has had an advantage over the ACC is coverage. Now that that's been balanced out, and maybe the ACC actually surpasses the Big 12 in coverage, I don't know. The ACC can compete at a much higher level with the Big 12. And that means they could bring in more money, meaning they could expand conference and conference realignment. Even if the grant of rights do get worked out and those big brands do get bumped up to the SEC, they have more money to offer and say, hey, more of your fans will see your team if you come to the ACC. This is a great bargaining tool right here. This is going to be a multi-platform network, including cable and internet, and the main focus is on coverage area. That's what the ACC has been hurting as far as the ACC network goes. So let's take a look at the Big 12 states. Universities in these states and what kind of coverage they look like. For West Virginia University, representing the state of West Virginia, good. It's not as bad as North Carolina and Kentucky, maybe a notch above, but it could be better. But still better coverage than the Big 12. I'll put that in there. Cincinnati, representing the state of Ohio, decent. That's on the same level as North Carolina and Kentucky, but Cincinnati is a new member. They do have time to work on that. UCF, representing the state of Florida, once again, one of the great states that gets coverage. Amazing coverage. Kansas, representing the state of Kansas, decent coverage. Kansas State, representing the state of Kansas, decent coverage. So the state of Kansas not covered all that well, but it's still covered. Baylor, Houston, TCU, and Texas Tech, representing the state of Texas, good coverage. So kind of right there in the middle. So I would focus more of your time and energy on the state of Texas because you have 4 potential members as far as conference realignment. And if you're going to try to lure them in, you need to make sure that you can tell them, hey, we got your fan bases covered. And finally, BYU representing the state of Utah. The state of Utah actually gets very good coverage under Comcast/Xfinity. I know that's a stretch for the ACC, but hey, the Big Ten did it. Why not the ACC? That's a great brand. There are 2 schools that's not looking good for the ACC as far as coverage in this deal, and that's Oklahoma State representing the state of Oklahoma. Right now, it registers as 0 coverage. Same thing for Iowa State representing the state of Iowa. Right now, it's showing 0 coverage. So it would be very difficult to lure those 2 teams in for the ACC as far as covering their teams. But hey, that's over 3/4 of the Big 12 as far as saying, hey, we got your team covered. You're going to get a lot of eyeballs on your team if you come over to the ACC. So this comes down to money and coverage, and they go hand in hand. This is a great bargaining tool for the ACC. This is a big deal. I don't understand why more people aren't talking about this, including myself. I didn't realize this deal until this very week, and they signed it last November, so that's like 10 months ago. So we'll see how well the ACC network does this year because the deal is now active for 2022. We'll see how it goes, and that could be yet another chip that they have in their back pocket to show Big 12 members, hey, it's better over here in the ACC. Then we'll see some countering from the Big 12. So y'all let me know in the comments section, how big of a deal do you think this is for the ACC to try to lure some teams from the Big 12 over to the ACC? And do you think that the grant of rights do get figured out and Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and Virginia get bumped up to the SEC? I really look forward to your comments on this one. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.